And you and your youngest sister, Julie, were both very involved in the civil rights
Julie
movement.
was involved with Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in the New York office, and I oversaw a lot of the people, in fact, who was going south. You went there a few times, didn't you? Going south to the different spots, yeah. And the other person who was involved that actually got me to go down there was Bob Moses,
Right.
as he explained. He flew out to UCLA after 3 civil rights workers were killed and said they needed a doctor down there full time.
When the call came, as it were, from Bob Moses and from Julie to go and become part of the civil rights movement in Mississippi and open a clinic and all the rest of it, it seemed that you would have been ripe for that, in the sense of you could really be a part of changing
Right.
fundamentally this racist system.
Right.
So what was it like when you got down to Mississippi?
Well, got down. It was preceded by 2 other experiences which softened the blow or got me prepared. When they were trying to get me to go to Mississippi, they invited me down to Mississippi for a weekend in early March 1965 to meet Bob Smith, the other doctor I was talking about, who they drafted, and stay at his house and meet all these people in the movement in Mississippi, all the leaders. So I met everybody, names I could name drop them all, and to see what I was getting myself into. So I did that, and I went back, and I was thinking about it, back to L.A. Then I got a call from the movement people. I forget who. I don't know. It came from SCLC. I think it came from SCLC and SNCC. And they called me and asked me if I would return to be the doctor on the Selma March and walk the 50 miles with the marchers and organize the medical care. So I said yes. So I went down March 20th and stayed for the whole march, marched the 50 miles, pitched tents, took care of the civil rights workers for the Selma March. After Selma March, I got back to L.A., but feeling more connected with the movement people. I became very close and impressed with a lot of the marchers, including teenage boys and girls on that march, and their spirit, etc., etc., etc. So some bonding took place.
Did you have any idea when you agreed to go down there just how potentially dangerous that was?
Yes, I knew it was dangerous. I knew it was dangerous. With the Selma March, after I got there, I felt a little bit better when I saw all those troops. Remember, they had nationalized the Guard, and there were helicopters, and there was jeeps next to you with soldiers in them, with helmets and rifles. And at the campsites, when we pitched camp, they had troops, pairs of troops surrounding the tent all night long. So you felt protected. What was scary is that you knew you were not totally protected, because the night before the march, Reverend Reeb was murdered, who was from Boston, and the night the march ended, Viola Liuzzo was murdered, going in the car going back to Selma. So you knew either of them could have been you if the situation was different. So you were scared. I was more frightened when I got back to Mississippi and I knew I was there permanently. And that's because I didn't know. I was frightened because of the tension in the air. It was so much tension of like strife and warfare and beatings and that whole atmosphere that led to the murder of the civil rights workers. And so I was seeing people who were beaten and all, just the whole bit, and the police and the troopers just absolutely terrified me. And it was still a situation where you could go into restaurants and they would put you out. No we don't serve your kind here. And even though it was probably against the law at that point, because the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 was passed, you was still that kind of climate.
So you stayed out of those places?
So I stayed out of those places. There were all kinds of rituals where you could get very upset and get into fights and get into jail. The laundry I went to, they had no black laundry, and I would go to the laundry with my shirts, and they had a colored pile and a white pile. They would take mine and throw it in the colored pile. I mean, it was all of that kind of stuff. I would go to a grocery store, and I would be waiting in line to cash out, and every white person who came would get in front of me. That they weren't allowed to serve me until all whites were served. So you ran into these rituals where you knew if you said something, they would call the police. Well, I did tell something to that clerk. I said, I've been waiting here a long time, and I want to pay and get out of here. And she just looked at me like, knowing maybe I'm not a local person, and she served me and got me out of there. Same stuff would happen in the bank with the tellers. So you felt this something that you may violate something that were going to get you into trouble. But we were also covering all of the demonstrations and marches. That was one of our jobs. So we had to be on the marches and cover when people were injured and so on, and people were beaten. Sometimes we went into restaurants where you knew they didn't want you there, where every look you got, like, what are you doing here and so on, but they would serve you, and sometimes serve you coldly and everything else. But they must have had a sense of humor because they would give you such hostile treatment. Then when you left, they would say, you hurry up and come back again now, you hear? And you would just want to knock like, but that's exactly what they would say. Their Southern ritual hospitality. You hurry up and come back again now, you hear?